Welcome to the Rural Pastor Podcast with your host, Andy Addis, and special guest, Mark Clifton.
We plant the seeds in the ground, though the fields have long been brown. But Lord, when will your harvest come in? I'm giving all I've got to give in the place where I've been sent. But will my labor make much difference in the end? Will no one ever know? Sometimes I feel so all alone. Like the prophet Jeremiah, you may be the one to go to the dying and the broken with a message of hope. To that church on the corner of that forgotten little town, to a room of empty pews where his love can still be found. You may never know of all the seeds you sow, but it just takes one willing soul to make him know.
The Rural Pastor Podcast, where we want to pour into, partner with, and pat on the back the rural pastor, because what you are doing is so important. I'm with you today. My name is Andy Addis, and I am the pastor of Crosspoint Church, a rural multi-site network of churches, as well as the volunteer rural strategist for the North American Mission Board Replant Team. And I am joined today with the wonderful, illustrious...
Hey, it's Mark. I'm here. I'm not wonderful or illustrious, but I am here. So 1 out of 3 is not bad.
He is wonderful and illustrious, and I have the benefit of being with Mark on a regular basis. And I know some of you listening to this, you go, if I could just touch the hem of his robe.
Oh, please. Touch the bill of my cap.
But you have an opportunity. There's something coming up called the Rural Summit, and we've capped the number of registrants pretty small because we want it to be interactive, and we're getting very close to that, but we would love to finish that out. And Mark's going to be on the platform twice. I get to be there once, and probably most importantly, Chosen Road, who does the theme song, is going to be leading worship. And we'll put a connection in the show notes. If you want to be the last handful of folks to register and be a part of that, again, that is, I'm anticipating probably in the next week there are going to be no more spots for the small crowd.
And we may still have a few free hotel rooms if you hurry, maybe. I probably shouldn't have said that, but
I'm going to let you say it.
I still got some space on my own personal credit card. So no, if you really need to come and you want to come, and I realize that a couple of nights in a hotel room could maybe be a bit of a burden for your family, given all the expenses of life right now. Man, just reach out to us. Let's see what we can do. Don't let that keep you from coming. Yeah. All right.
Everything about this Rural Summit is for and about the rural pastor. Most often, you guys are bivocational. You're trivocational. You're just doing everything in the world, and so we want to make it financially, time-wise, content, everything just for you. So it's really weird to start with that, but I was excited about it, and just want to make sure we fill up every last slot. Even and again, we are keeping it small, just over 100 and some, and because we want people to be able to interact. We want it to be a real event, not mindless masses walking around from point A to point B. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to start a few podcasts, a mini-series here, starting today. We've been talking about this, dealing with the issue of marriage in ministry, and what an important issue to talk about. And it gets talked about more than it gets handled. And we want to put some handles on some things. And what a better time to do this than right after Valentine's Day. Did you do anything special for Valentine's Day?
Yeah, we did, actually. We did every time. We did. We went to a very special place that we've eaten before, and had a great time. So yeah, we did. Awesome. Great Italian place here. I think, were you here with me in Kansas City when we went there? No, you weren't here, were you?
I don't think I was.
You weren't here. No, it's a great place. Been around for a long time.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, how about you? What did you do?
No, we had plans, but my wife's mother had surgery that was supposed to be in and out on Monday, and she was there she's still there, been there all week, just having trouble recuperating. So we're going to celebrate Valentine's Day and thankful for her mom's recovery in the near future. So we've postponed ours a little bit. But let's talk about marriage real quick. Do you have a first year of marriage memory? I know if you got one, go ahead.
We first got married and found a little duplex we were going to move into, and so I was going to be I was going to really win a lot of points here. So I thought, you know what, I'll just go ahead and without telling my bride to be, I'll just go ahead and move everything into the new house, and which is one thing. But then I, like an idiot, I thought I'll really make it feel like home for her and impress her. And so I'll go ahead and hang up all the pictures and put out all the little, just like it was my own dorm room, right? So I put everything up just like I thought it would look, and then and then a couple of days before we got married, she was still living with her parents, and I said, well, let's go by and take a look at the place we're going to rent. So she said, okay. So she walked in, and I thought she was just going to be elated, and say, oh, look how much work you've done. That was not the right thing to do. It was like, I waited my whole life to set up my house, and you've set it up for me, and I don't like any of this. And, yeah, it was a great couple of days.
So you got to put it all up and take it all down, right?
I took it all down.
That's such a guy move. Hey, we're really going to impress him, and we just didn't think through to the end. Yeah. Well, my first year of a marriage memory is Kathy and I. I was a youth pastor, and she was marrying into the ministry, and we waited. There was actually no budget for a honeymoon, so what we decided is whatever we got for our wedding, that's what we're going to do our honeymoon on. And Kansas, where we were married in Hayes, the Kansas Travel Tourism Board was having a deal that if you hit so many spots in the state, got so many receipts from here or there, you could win a cooler. So Kathy and I, for our honeymoon, won a Kansas cooler, which we still have to this day.
That's just dreams. What dreams are made of, bro.
Well, the sad part is that the little Geo Metro we were driving around the state didn't have a stereo. And I'm not endorsing this. So what we did is we went to Walmart and got a little battery-powered stereo, but we took real good care of it. So when we got back, we could box it up and return it to the store. It was wrong. It was sinful, and we have repented, but those were the days. Those were the days. All right. Well, let's just talk about this. Marriage and ministry, they go hand in hand, and yet they seem so opposed sometimes. We know that we use this passage in 1 Timothy to talk about overseers and to bring leaders into the fold. We hold it up as a standard, and we know it says that they're to be the husband of one wife. But I think more important than that, in verse 4, it says he must manage his own household well. And
let's just say as important as that.
Yeah. Okay, as important as that.
I mean, you could be a polygamist and manage your household well. Not sorry.
Okay, I wasn't assuming a violation of the first part of that. I'm just saying it's pretty easy to get married. It's hard to have a marriage, correct?
I'm just messing with you. I'm sorry. Good.
Yeah, but thanks for bringing up polygamy on an episode that we had no desire to talk about that at all. That was great. Anyway, I think that in 1 Timothy 3, where it says that we're the husband of one wife, and then it tells us that we have to manage our own household well, you see that, and then actually verses 4 and 5 extend that teaching. It's the only part of the leadership principle that has a commentary on it. Managing your household well, being a good husband to that one wife, a good dad to those kids, man, that is a huge part of real ministry, and they can't be separated because they're part of the qualifications for it. I heard Pastor Rob Morgan say this, that a church will never rise higher than the pulpit is deep. And so we have to take this teaching public. Oh, I think Tony Evans said it better though. He said that you can't build a high rise of a church on a chicken coop foundation. And so this is a foundational piece. How do we manage our household well? So here's what I thought I would do. I found a study by Lifeway where they did a study of more than 600 pastor wives. So this is just pastor wives. And I know we're talking to primarily pastoral leadership guys here. So I'm entitling this, What You May Not Know. And there's a bunch of stats. I've grouped them into 3 categories, and we're just going to talk about these. So here's the first couple of stats. It said of these pastor wives, 38% say they do not get the attention they need from their spouse because the church needs them so much. And 35% of spouses often resent the demands of the ministry on their family. Now, 33 is a third, so more than a third in both of these feel like the church is stealing attention, and they actually resent the ministry. And let's just be honest. In a survey like this, there's probably more, but they tried to answer pastorally because you always feel like somehow they got my name and number, right?
Well, there's a halo effect. You want to be a little more maybe righteous than you really are because you don't want to acknowledge. But let's think about something else, though.
Yes.
Let's say a guy is driving a truck over the road, and you got a third or 50% of the wives say, "Yeah, it really affects our relationship. He's not home."
Mm-hmm.
She may not have signed up to be. She may or may not have signed up to be a truck driver's wife. I don't know. I'm just saying he just made the need to do that in order to provide for his family. But if you got a third to 40% of pastors' wives saying, "Hey, I resent the church or for in some ways for taking my husband, and I feel neglected." These are women who probably most of them knew they were going to be pastors' wives and probably hopefully had some sense of call to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you've got to factor that into it. It's not like a wife saying, I didn't know my husband was going to have to be out of town for, work on the railroad or be an over-the-road trucker or have to work third shift. We're putting up with it. They were sort of in this thing together, right, as a team, right? And even though they're together, there's 30 to 40% of them that saying, "I'm feeling neglected." That, to me, is really telling. And like you said, there's probably a halo effect. It's probably closer to half or more.
Yeah, because what you're saying then is that they came in with the expectations. This isn't going to be always streets of gold, and we're not going to be walking on daisies. And then even with that expectation and calling, the demands and the lifestyle are still so difficult that still more than a third of them feel neglected. And if you're going to manage your household well, we have to handle this. And I'm going to start off by saying that I want to make a statement, and then this is convicting of me because this is a statement that was made to me that I had to get right early on in ministry. Now, how long have you and Miss C been married?
Decades. How about you?
I hit 30 years
Seriously?
Next summer. 30 years.
Well,
So
I think we're ahead of you.
Yeah, you're ahead of us. So between the two of us, we have probably
100 years between the two of us.
We have close to 100 years of marriage experience here. And one of the things that I did wrong early on was that I got called to the carpet for having an affair on my wife with the church. That I was more in love with the church and the ministry, and I treated the bride of Christ better than I treated the bride of Andy. And that was, first of all, an affair on my wife, and second of all, I was cheating on her with the Lord's wife. And that
Who brought that up to you? Who brought that up to you, and how did that resolve itself?
Well, when I was in seminary and pastoring in Fort Worth, one of my seminary professors who lovingly said this to me, it said, "I just need you to be aware of this," because Kathy and I were struggling. We had hit a real rough patch, and well, that can be a whole other issue. We can talk about that if you want at some point. But legitimately, we're thinking about calling it quits. And I was airing all my grievances as to how I'd been done wrong and this and that. And he goes, "Well, let me tell you what you're doing wrong." And it was in that context that was shared with me. And it really caused me to step back and go, okay, I have to be married to my wife and let Christ be married to his. And he challenged me. He says, never say you love the church. You love your wife and you love your Lord, but the church belongs to Jesus. And I don't think that, you're not going to get in trouble. It's not doctrine to go in that direction, but it is a good thing to remember that the church already has a groom. The church already has a husband, and it's not us.
Right. And the danger in ministry, one of the many dangers in ministry is that we can get our needs met by the way people seem to need us and think much of us and speak well of us and flatter us. And you're so kind and you're so generous and you're so smart and you're here and oh, thank you and all of this. And then, you go home and, you didn't take out the trash and you didn't fix the sink and you left your clothes all over the floor. And she doesn't say that about you, right?
Right.
She tells you who you really are. And she knows you, all your secrets. And she knows you're not just the person that other people see. And if you're not careful, you find more comfort sometimes in the church people because they don't necessarily see the real you.
Yeah.
She does.
It's a dating
And she's got to
superficial
put up
relationship with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I remember
And,
my wife put a cartoon up on the fridge when we were in our early years, and it was a woman on the phone with obviously her mother. It says, "Mom, I have to go. The man who's spiritually leading 200 people can't find his socks."
there you go. That's absolutely true.
So here's the answer. We've got two more sections, but before we leave this, the admonition is this. In your marriage, if you're going to run your household well and be that minister that you need to be, don't have an affair with the church. And there are three simple things that I would say, and I'd like your input on these, three simple things that I would say that I learned to do that helped me make sure that she was the one I was married to. And it was this: always answer the phone when she calls. That there is no active ministry that I'm doing that is more important. If I'm counseling a couple, I will look at them and go, "Hey, my wife's calling." It's actually a great testimony. I got to take a break. My wife's calling me.
Right.
Or if I'm in the middle of a meeting or almost anything, just always take that phone call. Second, pray for her more than you pray for the church. I mean, you should pray for the church. Yeah. You pray over her, you pray with her, you pray about her. If you could just add up, you say, well, you can always say, what are your priorities? If you show me your checkbook, I can tell you what your priorities are. Well, if you show me what you're praying about, I can tell you what you're most concerned about. And if 80% of your prayer is about details in the church and you're just basically throwing a blanket prayer over your family, well, you need to flip that. There's something that changes inside of you when you start praying more for them. And then finally, brag on her more than you brag on the church. Make sure that when people see you, they go, oh, he is in love with her, not in love with the church. So 3 simple things. What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And Tom Rainer always says this. I mean, he says it constantly. You never try to balance family and church. You'll never have those balance. You'll always be in conflict. Your family and ministry. Your family is your ministry. So listen, the way you pay attention to your wife, the way you love your wife publicly, the way you cherish her as Jesus cherished the church and gave himself for it, is a model for every husband in your church about how to live a life that Christ would honor in a marriage. Mm-hmm. So every time you do something like that, that's gracious and kind and serving to your bride, every time, as you said, you take a call from her, no matter what's going on, you're modeling. You're not only doing the right thing for her, but you as a pastor are modeling for your church what it means to be a husband. And dude, I've been in ministry all of my life, and I've seen some knucklehead guys treat their wives terrible in public, and just terrible and just ignore them because I'm here at the church, and and I'm in this meeting, and even in social settings, just sort of not really give them the attention that they deserve, not show them even, I think, gentle signs of affection, put your arm around her and stroke her shoulder and in front of some other men, younger men particularly, to see that how much affection I have for my wife and how I honor her and open the door for her and kind to her.
Amen.
All of that just simply models for young men what it means to be a godly husband. And the older you are, and you know what, dude, when you're young and you do that, it's one thing. But when you get to be my age, and we were on vacation, like a lot of old people. We were down at Branson, and we were walking down Branson on the waterfront area where those stores are and all that. And we getting ready to cross the road, and Jill and I are just holding hands walking across the road, and this young girl, maybe 15, 18 years old, I don't know, she walks up to us. She says, I hope when I'm your age, I got someone that holds my hand like that.
Amen.
I mean,
Amen.
I just think when you get older and you show that kind of lasting marital love, it's such an encouragement to young people who wonder if that's even possible or not. So
I,
it's all
I,
good.
I would summarize what you just said in this final admonition in this section, which is better than a marriage seminar, better than a marriage retreat. The best marriage teaching that you can give your congregation is to have a white hot romance with your spouse. And when people see that and they see that love, that's more important than any lesson you can teach.
And let me guys, listen up. All right.
Wait, you're about to drop some wisdom, aren't you?
I am going to drop some heavy duty wisdom. So listen up and pay attention. I know there was a time a few years ago when it was kind of cool to say, man, God blessed me with a hot wife. And, I got such a hot wife and all of that kind of stuff. And I know that was a sort of a way of affirming her. But that is so objectifying. What happens when that hot wife that you like right now, when age comes to her in a few years and maybe, she's not, you don't love her because she's physically hot. God gave me this wonderful woman that fulfills so many needs in my life. Don't, I know you're trying to affirm it and you're trying to say, well, you know what I'm doing. You know exactly. You've heard pastors do that. You've heard they do it. Man, I got such a hot wife. I'm so grateful. God gave me a hot wife. Everybody kind of snickers and all. It's like, no, man, don't, for goodness sake, don't do that.
Yeah.
I just don't. Do
so,
that.
in other words, you should affirm her, just not affirm her like a junior high boy.
Yes, exactly. Because also you're basically affirming what the culture affirms in a woman is her appearance. That's what you're saying. You value by your appearance. I mean, what if God forbid she got into a terrible accident and was disfigured? Well, she ain't, as far as the world goes, she's not hot now. I mean, what are you going to do? Just don't do that.
Yeah.
And I always try to put in my mind, well, I think one of the apostles, would, if Philip was married, do you think he would talk to the churches that he was writing letters to or speaking to? Hey, I want you to meet my hot wife. I just don't think that would probably happen.
That is a good standard.
You're just kind of trying to impress people or whatever, or trying to be nice to you. The way you affirm your wife in front of people is talk about what a wonderful mate she is and what a great companion and how she just really meets so many needs, and God works through her to fulfill so many things in you. And man, she can do that no matter how old she is. She can do that no matter what condition she's in.
Amen, amen.
And dude, you ain't all that hot either, guys.
And we don't have to see you to believe that. That's right. So in this first section, love your wife more than you love the church. She feels that more than a third of ministry spouses feel rejected. They feel resentment towards the church because of that. Here's a second one. I'm going to give you 3 stats here. 79% agree the congregation expects their family to be a model family. 49% believe their family live in a fishbowl. And 32% think that their family does not have enough privacy. So everywhere from about 80% to a third, from a third to 80%, what they're saying are, we don't have appropriate boundaries in our life. And if you don't draw lines, I guarantee you this, the church will never draw sufficient lines for you. You have to draw those lines. You have to be the one to say, here, this far and no farther. This is what you will and will not expect from my family.
Yeah, I know. Boundaries are hard. They're very difficult to figure out. They're very difficult to draw. They're very difficult to maintain because they just are. And that's why, guys, you need some other men in your life, other pastors, older pastors that you can go to and say, hey, man, I've driven this boundary here, but what do I, you got a boundary. We got 2 weeks vacation, right? This is our boundary, work time. And then you've got one of your most committed, active members who suddenly dies. Do you go back and do the funeral, or do you say, where's my boundary? I mean, you can set them, Andy, but in the world we live in and the ministry we live in, you've always got to be understanding. You got to balance some things. And sometimes as a younger pastor, you just need the judgment and wisdom of some older men who've walked down that path. So have some guys you can talk to and say, what do I do? And then if I do need to go back and do that funeral, how do I talk to my family about that? How do I make that up, so to speak, to them or that kind of thing? So it's one thing to say, I'm going to set boundaries. I guess it's another thing to keep them. That's what I'm trying to say.
And the accountability of having somebody with you.
and keep them in a world where every time there's all these different things come up. Somebody has a marital crisis in the middle of the night. Somebody has a surgery, and your kid has a ball game that day. I mean, it's so many things like that. It's one thing for us on a podcast to say, hey, set some boundaries. But the reality of it is, it's so much more difficult to navigate that when you're talking about people's, especially the guys we're talking to, that you may be the only staff person in your church, right? You know, you can't say, I'm on vacation, so the executive pastor will take care of it. It's like, it's you, right? And so that's where really, I think that's the difficulty. And again, I would just suggest you pray. Obviously, you bring your family in, encourage them to pray with you about these boundaries, but then find some good, strong mentors who've been down that road and lean into them and let them share with you, some wisdom of the ages. That's what I would suggest.
I love it. I love it. Now, let me give you a couple of boundaries that we set that have been helpful to us. Now, as you talk to a mentor, as you talk to some godly accountability, and you think about what boundaries you have. For me, when we came in, I've only pastored 2 churches. One was a dumpster fire, and the other has been this blessing that we've lived in for the last 2 years. And when I say dumpster fire, God did some good stuff, but it was just, we weren't leading sheep. We were driving cattle, and it was just a hot mess the whole time. And so we learned some things. And when we came here, one of the very first things we did first week in here was I set boundaries around what the expectations of my wife were. I said, you hired me. You did not hire her. She does not play the piano. She does not even play a radio. She doesn't do anything like that. She loves to serve in the way she's going to serve, and she is a member of this church to serve alongside of you, and there are no expectations of her beyond that. Actually, saying those things from the pulpit, it framed the next few years. And my wife, I remember telling me how much she appreciated that. Did the same thing for our kids. We said, I don't have pastors' kids. I have kids that are growing up in this church, just like you have kids growing up in this church. They don't have different standards than you do. And I've only one time had to go toe to toe with somebody who said, well, these are pastors' kids. And no, they are not. And we are verbally expressive about those things. And then we had one more boundary, and this was really important. It was the boundary of Thursday nights. If you come to any Crosspoint location, any of our multi-sites, you say, hey, when is the pastor's date night? They will tell you it's Thursday. And they know that because you don't call Andy unless you're bleeding from the eye sockets on a Thursday, because that is the day that Andy has taken his wife out, and they've protected that. And I know it's become a good thing because throughout our network, if I see somebody any night of the week, they go, hey, it's our date night. Tuesday's our date night. And they're telling us that's their night. And again, a little bit of that modeling there. But if you don't set those boundaries, if you don't have godly boundaries, and as you're saying, if you don't have someone to hold you accountable and support you in those, then boundaries are like lines drawn on a map that is never shared. But they have to be shared.
Yeah, totally. I agree completely. Good
Amen.
word, buddy.
Last one then, last section. I've got 3 more stats. Again, this is Lifeway that has talked to more than 600 pastors' wives. And here's what they said. 33% feel caught in a tug of war between the church and the family. 44% believe the church expects the needs of their family to be secondary to the church. And 55%, more than half, agree it is difficult to balance church and family, which is great because you already talked about what Tom said about not being able to balance there. And this one, I mean, if we had the 3 categories, it was love your wife more than you love the church, have boundaries between the ministry and your family, and then this one is understand that your first ministry is your family. And that's not just a nice statement. That is what it says in 1 Timothy chapter 3. You're not even qualified to lead until you're leading your family well. And so we have to be there.
And leading your family well is a living sermon of a Christian marriage. It's what you do. Likewise, leading your family poorly is a testimony of the other way that is distracting from the gospel and from everything else you say. So it's a win-win to lead your family well and to care for them and to focus on them. And one last thing, just simple. Ready? Here's 3 or 4 things from an old man. Don't talk church all the time with your spouse.
Amen.
Don't talk church. Talk Jesus all you want, right? Talk the gospel all you want. Talk theology all you want. But don't talk church stuff all the time. She's not, as you say, she is not the under shepherd you are. She's not called to do that. Therefore, she wouldn't have the same level of spiritual strength to deal with it that God gives you. So don't come home and dump everything on her, and don't just talk church all the time. Secondly, find out what she likes and make sure you learn more things about what she likes and become more involved in her passions and her hobbies and her things, and talk about those kinds of things. And then constantly be just looking for little ways you can make every day of her life better. And listen, guys, there's nothing more you can do that would make, listen, yeah, flowers are great, candy's great, cards are wonderful, actually, notes. But man, just fold some laundry when she doesn't ask you to do it. Just unload the dishwasher when she doesn't ask you to do it. Do stuff like that when she doesn't ask you to do it. And you'll just be amazed at how those acts of service like that will go such a long way. And it's what you ought to do anyway. You ought to wake up every day and say, how can I make my wife's life better today? And lastly, the command in the scripture is for us to love our wives as Christ loved the church. Not just when she treats us well and when she's in a good mood and when she gives us what we want and when she's not complaining, but all of the time, just like Jesus loves his church all of the time.
Well, and to just put an exclamation point on what you said there, I remember once I decided to do dishes spontaneously. It was a full moon. I have no idea what overcame me. So I'm doing dishes, and my wife comes in and stands next to me, but not towards the sink, towards me. And I look over at her, make eye contact. She goes, "You have never looked better to me in my life."
There you go.
And I said, I'm going to be doing dishes more often because apparently that's how I look good. Let's talk about priority of ministry. Early on, when we were first starting to boom and grow in our little rural neighborhood church called Westbrook, as I'm finishing up, it's Mother's Day, second highest attended day for a good number of years. People came Christmas Day and Mother's Day. It was even bigger than Easter for many of us. And so have a packed house on Mother's Day. I'm just starting the message. I remember I'm doing this object lesson, and I see my wife standing at the back of the church with these eyes like, I need to talk to you right now. And I'm like, oh no. And I have this policy, always answer the phone. Well, this isn't a phone call, but this seems even more urgent. So I just I reached back, turned my microphone off, and walked towards her. She met me halfway down. Of course, everybody's staring at us, and she whispers in my ear, "Nathan fell in the nursery. He needs stitches. I'm taking him to the hospital. I just wanted you to know." And she turned around to leave, and I'm like, yeah. And in that moment, I made a decision. I have this incredible message. I know it's going to change lives. It is the best Mother's Day sermon that has ever, but that isn't where I needed to be. And I turned my mic back on and said, my wife says that Nathan had stuck in a tumble and needs to get some stitches. I love you. I have to leave. And I took my microphone off and I left. And I went with her because she's the priority and my family's the priority. And yes, it was Mother's Day. And here's what's really funny. That was such a lesson to me, to her, to our congregation, that the worship pastor got up to sing another song, the closing song, and then dismissed everybody. But nobody left. They all thought it was an illustration. And they were waiting for me to come back. And he literally had to say, I'm telling you, Andy has left the building. Because they just couldn't believe that. And here's the goal for priorities in ministry. I don't know what you need to do, but to prioritize your wife and your kids and your family so much, the goal is for no one to wonder what's most important in your life. I don't know what you need to do, but for that to be your goal, how do you live your life and make decisions in such a way that no one wonders? Is that a good word for you?
It's a good word. No one wonders whether he loves the church. Actually, it's really not the church. It's the ministry and the response of people, whether he values that more than his own family. Right. And absolutely, you're right.
There you go.
No question about it.
Well, next week we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the harder stuff. We're going to talk about making a comeback and what do we got to do? Because many of you are listening to this and going, okay, we're healthy, we can do it. But some of you are going, we're just not in a healthy spot as a couple right now. What do we have to do to come back? And for any of you who are struggling right now going, I would like to take some time away. I would like to do, but there's just no margin in my life. you have to check out replanthub.com. There is a website connected to this work, especially for you rural guys, that is chock full of resources to help fill the pulpit, help to aid in your ministry time, to help advance what you're doing, that will give you some of that margin back. Don't have time to explain it all right now, but that is the tool and resource I would love for you to look at. Believe it or not, it is a church ministry resource, but it will help your family as well. Many blessings to you. Looking forward to coming back and being with you again on another edition of the Rural Pastor Podcast. And we're going to talk about making that marriage comeback.
Like the prophet Jeremiah, you may be the one to go to the dying and the broken with a message of hope. To that church on the corner of that forgotten little town, to a room of empty pews where his love can still be found. You may never know of all the seeds you've sown, but it just takes one willing soul to make him known.
Thank you so much for joining us at the ruralpastorpodcast.com. A special thanks to Chosen Road for this incredible theme music, to 180 Digital, our corporate sponsor, and you can check out both of them at our website as well as other resources, because you're not alone. And Rural Pastor, we believe in you at the ruralpastorpodcast.com.